So in 2020, my mom died of lung cancer because corporations poisoned our loved ones to unalive for profit. And C19 had just begun earlier that year, and I needed to complete a PhD, so I did. And in the meantime, I was living on blood money because my mom sued corporations because of that, and she won. And then my teaching accommodation was revoked by the administration after it was approved because graduate instructors weren't allowed to teach online, just on principle, even though it was already approved again. So I said my mom didn't die because corporations poison us for profit, just because the institutions are attempting to invoke eugenics and disregard the ongoing nature of a pandemonium. So I stepped down from my teaching assistantship. And then, after I finished my dissertation, which I'm very proud of and turned into a book and published it on January 19th, 2025, the day TikTok was supposed to be banned in January, so that I can show everyone that everything happening now is completely foreseeable, I got my first professorship. But the blood money had run out by that point because I was living on it for 2 years, and it's too expensive to live as anyone without a job. And I had a lot of debt that I paid off because I was already a millennial living in a market that was completely unsustainable and accruing $167,000 in debt, which I will never pay back because education is made expensive for no fucking reason when it doesn't need to be. Anyway, I moved to Cincinnati, and I wasn't told that I wouldn't get my first paycheck until a couple months later. And I needed that money to live and pay rent. And so I once again had to live on credit cards for a month or two and moved to an entirely new location. So I had to fucking pay for movers and because I had an apartment of shit that I needed to move 4 hours away for this fucking job that didn't pay me enough to live because I was making more than I've ever made, but it still wasn't enough to afford to fucking live. So, and then they didn't even tell me that I had to pay 14% of that into retirement. So I was making $36,000 with a PhD to teach 4 college classes. 3 times what I'd ever made with no summer pay. And then it drove me increasingly more into debt. So then at the end of that job, I got lucky because somebody that I knew from my master's could tell me about a remote job. So I got that. And before I did that, I cashed out the 14% retirement and had roughly $8,000. And then there was a bunch of fucking horrible apartment things that happened to me because I moved into an apartment that had a maintenance issue once every month of my being there and more. In fact, I had 15 total maintenance requests, and they were all major things. There was a sewage backup that leaked into my HVAC because the shop vac they used to suck out the sewage from the sink, they had to fucking use a shop vac for that, and then they left to get a snake, and it leaked into the HVAC on the floor and then got into the entire HVAC, and I had to evacuate because you can't have a fucking bleached up HVAC system and bleach all over the floor with a cat because it's dangerous for them, and it's dangerous for me to breathe in as a human being. So anyway, I had to live out of a fucking hotel for like 7 days because I was already going to move into a different place near Columbus because I thought I could afford to leave and there was nothing for me in the Cincinnati area, plus another $1,500 between the hotel and boarding Twinkle. And anyway, I got in there 7 days, and the new apartment was owned by slumlord billionaires. So I had to fucking spend like $5,000 because they scammed me out of like $3,000 because I was there. The more that I was there for like not even 2 weeks, the sicker I got. I found black mold in my fucking dishwasher that I washed all my utensils in and then used to eat out of. And then they fucking stole $4,000 from me because I lived there for like, not even 2 weeks. I had to move into another fucking apartment. So really what? So I moved in. So okay, I had to move out. I had to move my shit into storage. I had to move my shit out of storage into the new moldy apartment. I had to move it again out of the moldy apartment into the new apartment. I had to do sign-on costs again for the new apartment, it was just a fucking nightmare. And it was all just me by myself. And anyway, then I had to continue to live on credit again. New job is great, but it wasn't enough with the skyrocketing cost of living. So I had to eliminate moving costs, get rid of all my shit, which was like another like $1,000 along the lines, and I just never recovered. I've never recovered from that. And now I have this job that is trying to force me to go to an in-person summit, and I'm telling them I can't afford to do that. I can't afford. I'm living paycheck to paycheck. I can't afford to do that. And I also medically can't afford it because I've never like medically advocated for myself. Because, long story short, I'm autistic. And they're just like, well, you need to fill out this ADA form with your primary care physician. I met with a primary care physician because the first time in years, the first time since moving here especially, online, because doctors aren't fucking masking anymore and aren't taking COVID seriously anymore, despite me seeing and following the 6 years of research that goes to show that this shit is a fucking nightmare. It's causing full body damage. And I got the remote job so I wouldn't have to teach in person with an N95 and gloves on to 4 classes of unmasked students. And then, like, it's just, what a fucking shit show. Like, so now I'm hoping that my employer will approve my accommodation because I'm a really good worker and I'm doing all this other fucking shit, but there's no guarantee that they will. There's a possibility that once again, I could be put into financial jeopardy for no fucking reason except for the system failing us in every imaginable way, because they don't understand that there are so many invisible illnesses, so many invisible disabilities during the most sickening, disabling, contaminating, and most unaliving era of our lifetime. They don't get it. And I'm giving a talk about this, but now I'm concerned and I've been stressing about it for like 2 months while waiting for accommodations for this summit, because I can't even afford to travel. I can't even afford to go to California to this summit, let alone afford to stay and eat food and then be the only one masked and then get sick and then like, it's just such a fucking nightmare. Like, I got sick twice. I got C19 back at the end of 2019 and was sick as fuck, didn't know I had COVID. Then it was announced a few months later. And then I got it again in March 2022 and it almost unalived me. And I never medically advocated for myself. So now I'm just in this fucking position where it's like, fuck me, I guess. Thanks, horrible colonial capitalist system that doesn't treat all of us as human beings.